What about you? In today's video, I'm going to show you a step-by-step guide on the easiest way to get rid of moss from your garden. Let's go. Our first step is to get the grass cut. Now this video is in association with Boston Seeds, but more on that later. Before we get into the grass cutting, we need to have a talk about why your lawn even gets moss to begin with. Now moss can form in your lawn for any number of things. Usually it's down to wet soil. We live, for the viewers watching the UK and Ireland here, we live in a very damp climate and you're going to get moss coming every year. So the tips I'm going to give you will help minimize the amount of moss you are going to get in your lawn, but you're always going to get some. So scarification is really a yearly thing. Now you can either do it in the spring or the autumn. I'm going to get more into that in a minute. One of the biggest things that causes moss in a lot of lawns is having a lot of shade in your garden. Whenever you have a lot of shade, you're creating the conditions that the moss likes as opposed to the grass. In lawn care, good lawn care is all about creating the conditions they'll want for the grass, not for the weeds or the moss. Now, in this lawn, this is an orchard, so there's nothing we can really do about the shade. However, if it was your own lawn, and if you have a lot of shade around the lawn, then you maybe want to think about reducing that, because that's going to have a big impact on how much moss you are and you're not going to have. What height should you cut your grass before you scarify? This is a question that comes up all the time. I'm a great believer in just cutting the grass at the same height as I normally do, or sometimes I'll cut it a little bit shorter. However, if you're going to be using an electric scarifier, it might be more beneficial to cut the grass a lot shorter than usual, and this is going to make the scarifier a lot easier to get into the soil and pull out that moss and thatch. So look, let's get the grass cut. To scarify your lawn, you don't need any fancy tools. You could just use a metal spring-tine rake, such as this here. You wouldn't want to use a plastic one, as it wouldn't have the power. I recently did a video on cheap lawn care tools you can buy off Amazon. So any scarifying rake has blades on it, and these help pull the moss out. Another one that we featured a couple of years ago, which I really like, is this one. So I think this one was under £40, it was £36 and it included the handle, whereas the other one doesn't have the handle. So we're going to have a go with all these different scarifiers. So let's do that now. We'll have a go with our metal tine scarifier first of all. Right. I'm taking quite a bit of time just to pull out a small amount of moss from this one area. However, you can see we are managing to get it out. I think to do a big area, it would take quite a bit of work. So let's have a go at the budget option. So this scarifier has the two sets of teeth on it, with the ones that are further apart and the ones that are closer together. Obviously the ones that are further apart probably aren't going to be as hard as these ones. So we'll start with these and see how we go. It's quite hard work. I sort of feel that these ones that are further apart are on par with the metal rake. Give that more go. So what I've found, to get the moss out, we're actually losing some ground cover, which isn't ideal. So that's pulling out considerably more, but I've come up with a problem and I'm going to show you now. I bought this scarify we bought the cheapest tools off Amazon so you didn't have to. And we've only used it for a very limited amount of time, and I don't know whether or not it's just this one's faulty or whether or not they're meant to be like this. You can leave me a comment down below. However, find that whenever I was trying to scarify, whenever we're using the big wide ones, it was grand. However, whenever I was trying to dig these into the lawn there, these are moving. There seems to be a bit of movement there. So it means that you're having to bend right down to get it in. So having to get right down low in. Now it does work well and it's pulling a lot out. However, if I was to scarify a garden of any size for any longer than 5 minutes, I probably wouldn't be doing a whole lot for the rest of the day because I don't have the best back. So I'm not sure if this is meant to be like that, if that's faulty or not. But this here, it would be unusable in my opinion if you want to use these here. So let's have a look at our next manual scarifier and see how we get on. So let's have a look at our other scarifying rake that we've used in the past, and it seems to be very robust. So we'll have a go at this now. Oh, that one's far better. So this one's giving me the finish that I'd expect to see. Now, it's quite hard work scarifying a lawn by hand, and I'm going to give you a little cheat. We put on iron to kill moss. Well, it doesn't actually kill it, it dehydrates it. In most of my videos, I'll always say about putting the moss killer on afterwards, which is the iron. And it does that by, it dehydrates it and it burns it. And whenever you scarify, you're opening the moss up, you're opening the plant and the grass up, and you're getting the moss killer or the iron the whole way down, and it's dehydrating the entire moss plant. But whenever you put the iron on beforehand, you're only burning the top. However, if you're going to be scarifying by hand, you want to make that process as easy as you can. So by applying the moss killer or the iron to dehydrate the moss, then you're going to make the job easier to pull it out, and then afterwards put on more iron. You just need to be careful you don't put on too much and burn it. Before we do the next bit of the scarifying, we need to talk about the times of year that you should scarify. Now generally, whenever I'm making a video about how to scarify your lawn, I'll do it in March. However, this March it's been too wet to do any scarifying. If you've found the same yourself and you haven't been able to scarify your lawn, leave me a comment down below and let me know. Generally, I'll scarify from mid-March, April, early May. A lot of that will be dictated on whereabouts in the UK you are. In Belfast, we're quite far north. If you're in the south of England, then your soil temperatures are going to be different than ours. However, from the middle of August, September, fantastic month if you want to scarify and seed. October, good. A lot of it will depend on locally when your first frosts come. You want to scarify whenever the grass is actively growing. You don't want to scarify your lawn and then the grass not to recover, because what you're going to do is you're going to encourage the moss to come in. What I talked about earlier in the video, we want to create the conditions that the lawn wants and not the moss. So you want your grass actively growing so it'll recover after you scarify. What height should you scarify your lawn at? That's a question that comes up all the time. Every lawn is different. The tools that you have will be different. The tools that I have, your grass will be different. What you want to do is to set your scarifier to a high height, do a couple of passes, and then have a look at it and see about reducing it down. So I've had a go at the scarifying and we've pulled just a wee bit out. Now I'm going to bring the camera over and have a closer look at it. But ideally, you don't want the scarifier, the blades to go right down into the soil, because you're going to risk damaging the tools. Now, we might do that if we're seeding, but we're not seeding today, we're just scarifying. And if you're going to be using domestic tools either, you don't want to be touching, you don't want to be pulling the soil out, because you're going to risk damaging your machine. But you can see that there's still plenty of moss in that surface and it hasn't really get into it at all. So we're going to get the scarifier, drop it down in height, and see if we can pull some of the more of this moss out. Your scarifier might be different than mine, but in mine we can adjust both sides. So as you can see, I've just finished one pass at the scarifying. Generally, you want to scarify your garden at least 2 times. The reason for that is you want to take out as much as you can. Now, it'll also depend on the tools you're using. And just another little tip I'll give you. So if you bring your lines, if you go up and down the same stripes, you're not going to pull out as much. So generally we go at an angle. Now, whenever you take the angle and the further away, the more perpendicular you get, the more or the harder you're going to be in a turf. So if you're going at that sort of, if you're going at a crossroads, you're going to pull a lot out. Today, I just want to put a little out, so we're going to bring those lines from there, just nice and tight in. Let's do that. A key element in scarifying your lawn to get it gathered up is to let it dry. So after you get it scarified, go and have a cup of tea. So I've had my cup of tea, now we're going to start into the clearing up. I talk about these rakes in all my scarifying videos because these are the best rakes going. The reason being, just the shape of it. They're really good at flicking the grass up. So it means I can stand with my back straight and I don't have to bend down to do the raking. And if you don't like raking and you want to speed the thing up, you can't beat a blower. That's the lawn now cleared. If you didn't have a blower and you were just raking it up, then what I would advise is to take the lawnmower and run it over just to lift any remaining debris. However, as the blower does a pretty good job, we're going to go on and I'm going to talk to you now about how we're going to kill the moss in the lawn. So let's do that. Welcome into the workshop. I've a new product here to show you. Now before I get into that, I'm going to let you into a secret. I've reached out to a company called Boston Seeds and they sell a wide range of fertilizer and grass seed. I wanted to start featuring a lot more fertilizers on the channel that you guys can follow along with. So I'm going to be starting a mailing list. I'll drop a link to that down in the video description. You can sign up to it. The fertilizers that I'm going to be putting onto my own front lawn, you can follow along and you can buy them. So today I'm going to be using the Boston Seeds fertilizer called Kiss My Grass. It's a moss destroyer and lawn tonic. So just to tell you a little bit about what this is, it's something that's high in iron. So it's going to control the moss, plus there's other elements in it that's going to kickstart the growth. Now you can put this on before you scarify it or afterwards. If you want to put it on before you scarify, make sure you put it on a couple of weeks beforehand to give the product the time to work. Or if you want to do the way we do in the channel, we put the fertilizer on afterwards. You can do it either way. So look, let's go and put this onto the lawn.